Hi, this is Dave Gallagher from AnimSchool, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use the Malcolm rig from AnimSchool. And this is a very complicated feature film level rig, and you'll notice it has a lot of controls on them. And so one of the things you can do is open the Synoptic editor or the ABX picker in Maya. So for Softimage, you're just going to grab any control that you see, and you're going to hit F3, I think it is by default. I have it remapped to something else. So, and then these buttons here are various ways to select things. So this is a faster way sometimes than going ahead and selecting things in the interface. And if we switch over to Maya, it's similar. So you'll notice the same set of buttons. But we are making a separate picker for both softwares, which has multiple pages. And some people don't like the fact that these buttons are all jammed in there. This is the way that I like to work, and some animators like to work where everything is compact and you just remember where things are. But it is difficult to learn because there's a lot of buttons and you don't know exactly what things are doing. So I'm going to show you today how to find the buttons and what all the different features are of the rig. Okay, so let's get to it. So we'll go back to the Softimage version, and let's go down through the picker, and I'll show you some of the features and some of the things. This is sort of the topmost node, this thing called placement here, and if you grab that, that's how you move him around in space, and how you would angle him. Say his shot is mostly to move this direction, then you'd want to angle him that way. And this would be also how you scale. And he's pretty functional with the scale. There are a few things that aren't quite scaling properly. His eyebrows in Maya aren't scaling properly. We'll fix some little things like that, but you can scale him a little bit and it'll work fine. His geometry is grayed out, so you won't be able to select it by default, but you can change that really easily. If you go in Softimage, you'd go to select all geo, and then you'd come here to the MCP and change selectability, toggle selected objects. So that way you could select it and do various things to it to modify him or what have you. If you just want to smooth it, then one thing you can do, I'll go back to unselectable now, just did undo. You can just use these smooth buttons, which is going to hit the 1, the 0, the 2, and this will smooth him so that he, in the display and the render, will show as smooth. But of course it's much faster if you just leave it on the 0. And one thing that we really tried to do here is to make this rig as fast as possible. So for the most part it runs in real time if you have no smoothing on in both software, and sometimes faster than real time. So there's a lot of economy in the building of the rig with the least amount of nodes as possible to make a very functional rig. So I'm going to go back up to smoothing of 1 just so I can show you some different features. So we'll start. We started with this placement node, which is the sort of the top level of the rig that you actually touch. The next is the body, and this is sort of like the center of gravity for the rig. You can move this, you can rotate it, you can scale it, and that all works. And then there's a gimbal node for that, and the gimbal node is right beneath the body. So this is the body gimbal is what it's called. And you can see that over here, body gimbal. And what happens with gimbaling is when you do, let me make sure we're set to the right mode here. If you go to add mode, you can see that when you do certain rotations, you are eventually going to have 2 rotations be the same and match up, and you lose this third rotation. So this is unavoidable in CG. And so what we do is provide a child of that control down here, which retains that third rotation. So that's why there's in a lot of high rotation points on the rig, there's 2 controls. And if you hear me say mover, that's because that's the standard for Blue Sky Studios is mover that I'm used to, but we call them controls at AnimSchool. Sometimes I forget. So we'll go back to local mode. So in local mode, you can see as if there's no gimbal, but of course that's what's happening under the hood. So that's why there are, for a lot of high rotation points, there are 2 controls at the same place. So here's the head control here. And here's this little sub one to the lower right. That's a gimbal control for the same thing. So there's two at the same point. And you can use those gimbals for other things too. Like you can introduce like a little shake into the gimbal, for instance, and they have multiple purposes. So that's the body and the body. And then going up the body gimbal, going up the spine, you have 1, 2 spine movers, and then going into the chest, you have basically the regular chest mover, and then there's one above it just for bending and cheating. And so that's these main controls. The controls that are bigger are more commonly used. You know, they're supposed to get your attention a little bit more, so that's why they're a little bit bigger, and the less used ones are a little bit smaller. And so above that, there's a neck mover. That's this one, this control, and that will turn the neck. And whether the head is connected to the neck or stays according to the placement node, you can control that if you select this head here and you turn this orient to placement to 0. That'll turn that off. So then if you were to then grab some part of the body, the head's now going to follow the body instead of when you open it by default, it's set to follow sort of like the global space, the placement node. And so if we switch that back to 1, then again, it's not going to follow. But what it follows instead is this yellow one here. So if you see these yellow ones, that's what this is. It now follows this, which is a child of I think the placement node. So let me go up here. Yeah. So this one, it not only follows the placement node, but you can actually have control over that. You can actually turn it. And so there's another level of control. That's this switch on the head control. All right, so that's going up the body. You can see all those things. And that topmost node is meant to you know, control all the head rotations by itself. There's another neck mover, which is just, or control, which is just angled exactly along that line right here. Alright, so I just turned on my drawing tool so I can draw on the screen, but this is angled like this, so it's exactly in line with the neck. So if you did want to spin it exactly along that axis, you wouldn't have to deal with the fact that this controller isn't exactly on the same axis as the neck. So that's what happens when the model isn't modeled straight up and down, but has some character to it. There's a controller for the midpoint of the neck, which I might not have shown before. So going down the arms, these are the FK controls for the arms. These are the ones that are controlled for rotations, right? So you can rotate from here, you can rotate from the elbow, you can rotate from the hand, and those are called FK, forward kinematics. And once you rotate beyond a certain point, you really need to start involving the shoulder control. So if you keep going, it just kind of looks funny. So what happens in real life is the shoulder starts getting involved. So you want to involve that. Whenever you rotate the shoulder, it doesn't change the rotation of the arms. It keeps the arms stable orientation-wise, but it's basically a way to have them shrug your shoulders or sort of make the shoulders more mechanically correct by lifting those up. There are rotations happening and there are translations happening when you do this rotation. The shoulders are actually lifting as well, and it's designed to sort of look nice in various poses. So, but you can also take over manually and do a few things. For instance, you can lift it. If you translate it instead of rotating it, you can do all kinds of things. You can lift it to be higher than normally would be. Another thing you can do is there's this other control called control shoulder rotation left, rot left, where this is the pure rotation. This is how a lot of rigs are, just the pure rotation of the shoulders. But the one that we recommend you use is this one that has both lifting and rotations built into it. But you retain access to that sort of raw rotation control if you want it. And that's this little one right here. So there are a lot of controls around the arm, and this is for twisting. I want to show you that in a minute. And this is for orient. That yellow one is another one, just like the head. So when you twist the chest, for instance, the arms stay with the chest. But if you don't want that to happen, If you only want to animate the arms one time, and you're not going to have a lot of turning in your animation, you might want to turn on that same feature, which is orient to placement. So if you turn that on, then when you rotate something in the body, the arm is going to stay orientationally the way it was before. You see that? Unlike the other arm, this arm is staying in that rotation. So that can be a handy thing to do. And when you turn that on, it's linked to that yellow control, just like the head was. So those are some FK ones. There are a few more for deformation I'll show you in a minute, but first we're going to see the IK. So inverse kinematics, that's IK. If you turn it on, then we just dial this to 1. That's how you turn on the IK, and then the arm is controlled by its sort of endpoint, unlike the FK. Those two are mutually exclusive. You can use one or you can use the other, and you can dial between the two, and you can snap between the two. So if you have the arm in a certain pose in the IK, you say, well, you know what, I want that in FK, or I want to switch in that particular frame, then what you could do is you can say, let's see, we're in IK, we want to go to FK. So we're in IK now, we're going to switch. So we click this button here, and you see all the controls change so that they lined up. Did you see that? I'm going to undo that. And then click that button. So all the controls line up so that they're now the same. It isn't actually switched to FK yet, but we can do that if we just switch that to FK. Most of the time that should be more or less perfect, depends on the use of the gimbal controls and all that, but it doesn't take great account of the gimbal controls. But sort of like the raw controls that you use, this should be a perfect or near perfect match with a pose. Now if I move, I'll go out of FK, IK, and now if I move that, nothing happens. So now the controls, the FK controls have taken over. And you can do the opposite too, where let's say you're in FK and you say, you know what, I want to switch to IK now. Then you do FK to IK, and we've switched, or we've snapped, but we haven't switched yet. So I'm going to grab this control and switch it to IK, and you notice that it's in the same place, but now I'm controlling via IK. So that's nice. One weird thing that happens is that the control for the pole vector gets exactly at the elbow. So normally you don't want that. You want to scoot it back a little bit. So you probably want to scoot this back a little bit, so that as otherwise it'll kind of spin quickly. So these are the FK controls. This one here, and mostly what you want to use is this elbow one. There's this other one right now, which I think we might take out, this rotation control, because we added some features that are not quite compatible with that. So you can, I think you can ignore this button. We'll probably take that away. And what we changed is, we have this position of the pole vector, but you can have it linked to either the world or the body. So what that means right now is linked to the world. So if you change something in the body, his arm is going to stay locked to this point. You see how that works there. The elbow is going to point to that location, and this control is not affected when you rotate it because it's not a child of that. But we can change that by hitting the B button, which stands for body. So this is like world and body. So I'm going to click that, and it stays in the same place, but now when we rotate the control, it goes with it. You can do the same thing to this IK controller itself. So normally when you use IK, it stays in place. But if you want, you can have it follow various things. You can have it follow the body. So we're going to hit that B button next to the IK control. Now it's going to follow the body as well. So we can have those things all sort of linked to the body. That's handy. And we can have it linked to the chest, so that when we rotate the chest, it actually is linked to that. So people like to use IK in all kinds of different scenarios, and this just facilitates those different workflows. By default, it comes into the world, so that when you change this stuff, nothing happens. The IK arm and the pole vector are by default at the world. So we made this a button so that it would switch and not change. So otherwise, if you would switch that parent space of what it's parented to, it would pop to some other location. Instead of that happening, it just reassumes its old position. But one thing you need to do is, once you do that, I have no keyframe set, but if I had keyframe set it would pop to its old keyframe. So what you do is whenever you run any of these scripts here, these buttons, you need to make sure that you key the things afterwards. And those are these key buttons, or you can just grab, say, the all, and these are subsets. So there's like just the sort of the basic set of controls. This is more of the controls. This is all the controls. Most animators I know, they just grab everything and they just hit key. So you can hit the key button, or you can hit the S key in Maya, or you can hit this key all button and everything gets keyed. So once those are keyed, I'm just going to hit that key button. So now that this has a keyframe on it, if I were to change this to chest, say body space from world, it might still pop back when I change frames. Yeah, see, it pops back. So I need to change it to body, and then I need to key it. I'll hit the S key, and then it's going to stay in that when I change frames. So that's how this works. These scripts do things for you, but then you have to make sure that you key it if you want it keyed. So you have the latitude to choose either way. So now that these are keyed, I'm just going to grab everything and I'm going to hit the reset button. Now everything's going to go back to the way they were, but again, it's not keyed. So if I want it to key that way, I can hit everything. I can hit the S key, or I can hit that key button. The lids get their zero poses close, and I'm going to show you why in a few moments. But let's go down the body still. So this is the IK for the body, and these are the ways to switch things. And what are these other purple ones? Well, this is to control the shape. Okay, so if we go and I think I'm going to remove all the keys, so I'm just going to do all and do remove transforms. What happens is it's easy to get into poses where I'm going to go to FK. If you get into a pose where the shoulders deform strangely, there are various ways to sort of get around it. And so there are some controls. In all shoulder rigs that I've seen, there is a point at which there's flipping that happens. And if I go here to here, you can see there's like a little flip. So what you need to do is to solve that, if you were to go in this it's a sort of like a pull on an orient or an aim constraint. So what you do is you grab this brown one, which is called twist, and you rotate it on the X axis, and that's gonna change the pull where it flips. Okay, and you can also rotate it around so that you can fix deformation problems. There are purple ones all down the arm, and those are just sort of raw access to the joints. So those can also spin and fix problems, but you can also move them around and do all kinds of things with them. And so you see the colors of these correspond more or less to the colors of the actual controls. So if I grab this and move it, then I can shape the arm. And this is handy because in animation you want to control the silhouette very precisely. So it might be that I want that arm to come out a little bit that way, and I would be able to do that with these controls. Now there are more sophisticated rigs, but again, this rig is optimized for speed. So what this is it's just a very few amount of joints, and if you want it to perfectly bend from there, then you want to grab these other purple ones and say maybe bend it from there if you want to sort of take the start point of those rotations. So again, you've got the purple one at the top, you got the purple in the middle, and then you have two at the joint location. So you can bend this in all kinds of ways, and a lot of rigs are more sophisticated in terms of getting you very precise bend controls, but this is actually a very light rig. It has that benefit of being very light. So again, if you wanted to control that shape, you'd grab the bottom purple control. These are called direct controls, and you can grab that mid one, you can grab this one, and create sort of some kind of rubber hose kind of a thing. Or if you do slight controls, you can just very slightly control the silhouette of the character. So those are the purple controls there. The orange ones probably won't be used super often, but what it is just like the body, one of them is above the body. So that's this one. No, that's this one, and it also rotates that body control with it. The problem is that once you move that body control, it leaves it behind, and then you're pivoting around this point. So depending on when you decide you want to use a control like that, it might be too late. So what you then can use is this other one here, which is below the body control. So this is like a hierarchy. This is first, this is second, and then this other control here is afterwards. This is if you want them to swing from something. There are different ways to do that. One way is to grab the insert key in Maya, and you can move that the rotation point of the body control itself. And if you didn't want to do that, you could use these other controls. But they're just a hierarchy of controls there for you to be able to use. So that's the spine upward, and a lot of things about the hands and the arms. But see, chest, gimbal, we covered all this. So let's go down from the hips. So you got this first control here on the spine, and there's some correctives that happen to make that look good. But if you wanted to control from there down, then you've got these sort of more reddish purpley ones that can bend the hips. Okay, so what these do is, I got to change those colors there. You can rotate it so you can have it go this way, or spin, but you can also translate it, and you can put it in any location that you want. This works pretty well to a point. Like if you take it too far, then you're going to get shearing. So mostly you would want to keep it in a certain range where you wouldn't get that shearing. If you did get that shearing and you want to get rid of it, there's purple controls also for the middle of the spine, and you could maybe work those shearing points out. But the rig is really an FK rig, and so it's designed for rotations all up the spine. And if you did want to use the translations, it's a little bit of a less supported workflow. So you grab this chest, you can move it wherever you want, but again, the rig isn't built to handle that shearing super well. It's mainly an FK rig with some IK controls on top of it. So it's pretty bendable, but it does have limitations because of that sort of FK-centric approach. So again, we have those same controls up the spine as well, those purple ones, which are direct access to the joints, and you can do things like reshaping things. If you have problems and the shirt were to poke through the pants, poke through the shirt, then we've got a control here. If you come to that first hips, you've got narrow pants top, and it's just a way of hiding that penetration. Same thing at the neck to the head. That's, I think, on this control here. You can tuck those neck points in if you have intersections up there as well. So you've got this hips control, but and you can rotate that, but that's kind of high up, right? That's kind of at this point. But you've also got one down here, so that's this one right here, which sort of spins and changes the shape of the spine, unlike that first one, which rotates without changing the shape of the upper spine so much. All the rotations happen below, whereas on this one, it spins and the rotations sort of center on that midpoint. And this first one has a gimbal control if you need it. So if you get into a rotation situation again where you wanted that missing rotation axis, then you've got that gimbal there. The legs are the same, where you've got the FK. By default, it's turned off, so we'll turn it FK on by just going to that this one here, the control foot IK left, and we're just going to turn this off. I'm going to set that to 1, and I think I'll turn on auto key for these that I left on. And now the IK doesn't work, and the FK will. Oh, this is a good time to show something though. The IK, there's something about the IK. Normally, you want to turn off auto stretch as well, because even though we're in FK, the auto stretch is still working. And sort of a long explanation to why that is, but normally you want to turn those both to 0 if you're going to FK. So we can do FK on the legs. We've got the full rotation here in the legs, and a similar deal where we have the purple controls to do shaping on the legs. And if you didn't want the pants to look like the I'll undo a little bit. If you didn't want them to look like this, but instead wanted them to be more straight, then we've got this smooth cuff thing. You can set that to 1, and it smooths out the cuff, the bottom of the pants. There's a few controls for the pants themselves. So the bottom of the pants, you've got these purple ones here. Again, you're noticing the theme of the purple is sort of like a way to control the direct access to the joint. And so you've got the back and you've got the front to control this, and you could probably move them up to a certain extent. It's not really built for that. You can't do it a lot, but you've got a little bit of leeway there to move those up or move those around. And so with the IK, if the leg is in IK, then you'll see, okay, I put that back in IK. There's a few features like this green one over here is for the hip. And what this is a sort of a cheat mover for the start of the hips. You already saw how to rotate the hips, which is normally happen in life, but there are a lot of IK issues you have to wrestle with. And so this is sort of a cheat mover. You can shove that beginning point of the hip up or down to solve deformation problems, to cheat things to camera. You can solve IK popping problems and all kinds of things like that. And so with that, let's go over some of the features of the IK leg. So the FK controls for the feet are somewhat complicated, so we're going to spend a minute on that. And this is the same basically in Maya and Softimage. Again, they're almost exactly identical. But so if I go over here to Maya, we've got this same list here of controls. And one thing you might want to do is, it's going to come in when you reference this in and have all the joints showing. You probably don't want to see all that stuff, so what you can do is come in here to show, just turn everything off. Whoops. Just turn everything off and then just turn on a few things like the curves and the polygons. Okay, so now we have just curves and polygons showing. And again, so we'll come down here to the foot. And I'll show this in Softimage because my video card works better with Softimage. So the foot roll here is sort of your main tool. Of course, you've got the rotation point, and the rotation point is exactly in the place of the heel, or not the heel, but the ankle, so that as you're moving through here, you can rotate that without changing the IK solution. Whereas if the pivot point's down here, I'll just move that down with the insert key, then it's going to move that around. So we kept that at the ankle point. So that's one way you can do it. So you can animate this manually. You can just rotate it, you can move it up, and then you can grab the toe control and you can do that. So you can create sort of this manually, but most rigs have this sort of automated way of doing this. And what you do is you rotate the foot roll, and that'll sort of pivot off the heel and the ball. And when you've got that, you have a few controls you can use. So one of them is toe raise. Toe raise doesn't do anything unless you're sort of tipping off the tip, the front of the toes, and then you use this toe raise and it sort of pushes upward. But if you're in the back, then this heel press does a similar thing where it pushes down and it bends up the heel like that. So again, we've got these controls that you can do manually. There's this heel control. You could also bend it and do that manually, but this is a sort of an easier way to go about it. And let's take a look at that toe raise again. So we'll go to the front, and first thing to notice is that I've modeled him so that his feet, the ends of his feet, kind of turn upward, and that's a stylistic thing. It's a graphic choice, design choice, but also it does introduce a complication, so that when he lifts onto his toes, what that's going to do is put pressure on them, so they're immediately going to flatten down. And this is, if you look at your feet, a lot of shoes are sort of had that bend in them, so this is what happens. So you get a little bit of pressure on there, and it pushes them down. You could leave this down like that, but I think it looks better and more realistic if it's left up. But as soon as you put any pressure on it, those toes should really flatten on the ground. and then as you lift up and you want to push the toes up, then you can use that toe raise a little bit more, and it sort of pushes that up without intersecting with the ground. So that's kind of a handy thing, but it's almost like a two-stage process that once you have pressure on it, it doesn't make sense any longer for the toes to be up, and so you want to use a little bit. And as you get further into the roll, the foot roll, then eventually you want to push all the way up. And then in a animation, you have to decide whether you're going to keep in that or you're going to switch over and turn these off, and then switch over to using rotations halfway through the step. So people do it all different ways, and you can choose your way of working. The other thing is that when you I'll just reset this back down. Another way to do that is to hit this reset button. I think we're going to add this separate reset button, which resets all the controls as well, not just the transforms. But right now that's the way it is. So let's say we have that, and maybe we use a little toe raise. Then one thing you can do is use this toe squash, which literally sort of like presses it down in the one direction and out in the other direction. So this works regardless of whether the foot roll is used at all. And you have the heel press, which obviously works better when it's going back the other way. And you've got this heel squash, which pushes that outward. And those also work again if there's nothing on. You just want to show pressure being put on the foot. You can do the heel squash and the toe squash also on the ground. So that's handy. The other thing is that I didn't have great controls for sort of bending this, so I added this other one here, this purple one here. And again, the purple one's for controlling just the direct access to the joints. So remember, these purple ones are for the pants. This is for the midpoint of the foot, so you can introduce bend in it by using that. And so instead of like an FK, it's sort of a after the fact control of the shape of the foot. Okay. So we're going to turn that off. And then the other controls are for doing things that control the length of the leg and things like that. So we looked at IK before. To turn the IK on, we have the length of the leg. So we have this upper leg length and lower leg length. You can control some of that automatically, again, if this auto stretch is on. So what auto stretch means is that the leg will stretch to meet the point of the IK, and that goes for either direction. Like if I pull in this direction, then the legs just stretch. If you don't want that to happen, you can turn that off, and you can turn it off gradually as well, and then it will just point to that location. Unlike some rigs, though, the foot doesn't sort of bend to meet it. In order to do that, you would manually need to use the foot roll and things like that. So that's the auto stretch, and then we have a few things like knee roll. What knee roll does is mimics the behavior of this pull vector. So you've got the pull vector you can choose, but some people like to do it through an attribute, so you've got this knee roll. That's not my way of working. So tilt is just to pivot off the ends of the sides of the foot if you need it. And then we've got Hyperextend. What Hyperextend is some IK solutions only go straight and they don't go backwards for the most part. And so what you can do is simulate that. Some people might stand with their knees actually bent a little bit backwards. So this is how you get an IK solution to kind of bend backwards. It just sort of pushes everything front or back. Not really designed to go frontwards, so don't do that. Go just a little bit backwards, and you can have it be, take on the silhouette that you need. Same for the arms. The arms are in IK, and you want to, again, not meant for this. It's meant for bending backwards. So some people can bend their arm just a little bit that way, and that's a handy feature to have. And I think if FK is on, it still works, but it's not really designed for FK because, of course, when you're in FK, you can just bend it that way. But there's a lot of controls. So there are other foot controls. So those are the ones all emanating from this one control here. But you've also got these other ones, which is this is the heel control. So you can control the deformations for that, and you've got this for controlling the ball. So you could animate this by itself, but the foot roll is probably a better workflow. Those are those controls, and then you've got this for toes. You can manually bend the toes, this 1 point of rotation and then a 2nd point of rotation. And it looks like we might have a few errant weights there. I think I'll clean that up for a future revision. And so this is a gimbal for that ankle right here. Here's our ankle control that works only in when we are in FK. So we'll turn this to FK. And so we have this. This is like the wrist, but for the foot. And of course, it has a gimbal control as well. So that's pretty much the whole of the foot. There's these controls for the shirt, which this is this ring right here, and just a ring of controls around there. I think we're going to make these a little more robust too, so that when you grab the whole lot of them, they move up the shirt a little bit better. But it's just a very simple way of handling shirt collisions. Let's see what else on the body. You've got these buttons I showed you for changing the smooth level. That's the same in Softimage and Maya. If you don't want to see all the controls, we've had a lot of people talk about this, is that too confusing to see all these controls. In Softimage, it's nice. You've got a workflow where you can just select any of the controls regardless of their hierarchy, and it doesn't select anything below it. That's a really handy thing because you can then hide parents of other controls which are children of them. So if I hit hide now, I can hide whatever controls I want. In Maya, that's different. We'll switch over to Maya. If you grab a control and it happens to be the parent of lots of other controls, and I hit hide, well, it hides every child of that. So it doesn't, the hiding and showing doesn't work the same way, and it's not as convenient for this kind of thing. So what we do instead, we have a few toggles for turning things on and off. So we can toggle all the controls on and off, and normally I use that with a hotkey. You can turn them all on with the all, and you can just go down a subset here. This is all the ones in the most set, and this is all the ones in the basic set. So if you just only want to see a few, you can hit that basic button. And based on user feedback, I think we might add a few more buttons for different levels of visibility for that. But to be honest, I never use this. I just turn them all on or off with the well, not that button. With this hotkey, I have to turn them all on and off. And I either work with them on or off, but most of the time I use this Picker graphical user interface. So it's not a workflow that I'm really big into. So if the users of Malcolm want specific sets of things to disappear and appear, then you can certainly make that request. And where you'd want to go is the AnimSchool forums. So go to animschoolforums.com and you can put your requests in there. All right, we'll switch back to Maya, or to Softimage, and I'll just zero that out. I'm just using that reset selected there, attached to a hotkey. We talked about how you can select all the geometry and how you can select just the eye geometry, and that's if you want, normally you want the eyes to be a little bit smooth, even if the body isn't very smooth, because eyes look really funky if they're not smoothed at all. And this is all geo. Good, and we can deselect things. One thing we can do is mirror the selection, mirror the pose. So if we have this arm like this, we can hit mirror pose, and then it mirrors that pose. And this works to a certain extent, but sometimes you have controls which are rotational and translation. So if I hit mirror on this, it'll work. But what if I have translation? So I move it up a little bit. If I mirror that pose, the other side's going to go down. This mirror is just mirrors the actual values. Now, this rig is pretty well constructed so that the values of the most used control do mirror, but some controls have rotation and translation, and we don't really mirror both. And so in order to do that, if you wanted to use that mirror function, what you'd have to do, come in, until we have this, maybe this will be smarter in the future, but basically you just take out the, you just invert one of the axes. We're going to invert the Y, and now it goes up like that. Again, in the future maybe this could be smarter, but right now it just actually inverts or mirrors the values and nothing else. So we'll just grab these controls for the shoulders and bring it back down. That's that mirror pose button. And so if you select, let's say you create a hand pose, and so I'll just grab these here, and maybe we'll create a hand pose that we like. And I want to mirror that to the other side. We can hit the mirror pose button if we first select them all. So the plus buttons here select multiple things at the same time. So the plus button here selects every control on the arm, and every control on the leg down here. And what this does, it selects every control on the hand. So then if I hit mirror pose, it's going to mirror the pose onto the other side. There's something, I'm not the world's greatest scripter, and so this mirror doesn't work. I think a future version will figure it out exactly. But what we can do is if we do select other side and then go back again, then we mirror the pose, then it will mirror exactly. But it's a programming thing that we got to figure out. But mirror pose works always when you have one control, but in the Softimage you've got to maybe do that select other side thing if you have a bunch of things selected. We haven't really talked about the hand, so this is controls. This selects all the controls in the hand, and this selects sort of this cross section. So this selects all the last joint on the finger. This selects that second joint on the finger. This selects the top most rotation by the knuckles, and this goes down the finger. So now I've got all the controls on the finger. So one thing about Softimage is it wants you to be in add mode if you have multiple things selected. So we'll just switch over to add mode, and then we can do that. So this is if I have the thing to notice though is that finger rotations don't work generally in even rotation. So what I recommend is sort of doing them individually, because most of the rotations of the fingers happens right here, and a little bit less happens here. And so controlling these individually will give you better hand poses. In any case, you've got this cross section. This selects all of these. This one selects all of these, all the way down to the first finger. And you see this picture here. The thumb is there, and the first finger is there. So that's what you remember. This is the thumb. This is that first finger. And I know some UIs are with the hands flopped, but you have to remember how this is oriented. So this is the pinky finger that we're talking about when we select these things here. And this is the knuckle when we're selecting this. There's a few other features of the hand. We've got this one here to sort of bend the hand. We've got, you can bend or sort of cup the hand. And this is a frequently used control. You can rotate it in multiple angles and sort of spread out the hand or cup the hand. And this goes along with what your hand does. Is when you create a fist, you've got this sort of angling happening on your hand. So you want to bend that pretty frequently, or spread it, or compress it to create different hand effects. It doesn't really work so much with the translates right now, but at least you've got the rotations. For the thumb, you've got this point of rotation here, and then you have this point of rotation here, and then you have the one at the knuckle. I'm just going to smooth this so we can see what it looks like better. And yeah, I spent a lot of time on the fingers to get the rigidity. And there's a couple things you need in a hand rig to get it to look nice. And one is to fill it up so that when you have the fist, when you're clenching a fist, then it creates that solidity that you want, because you don't want that CG hand effect where there's gaps in between. It looks like a claw. So when those fingers bend, they actually press outward, and that skin presses up. So that by the time you get to a clenched fist pose, by the way, I'm just hitting the control if you want to multi-select. Same in Maya, I believe. You come over here and create that. Then you can start to create this pressed fist idea, and you want to rotate those. Now they're all compact, and you create that solid shape for the fist. And we'll just move this a little bit and maybe get this over here so that we've got this. We're starting to have a fist. Most of the rotation happens in this first point here. Alright, so we have something like that. And then if you want to mirror that again, so I would grab all these, and then I would actually hit that select twice, and then hit that mirror pose, and you get the two fists. I can think of some ways to make this look better too. We might work on this in the future, but we might want this to look a little more boxy and compact. But at least you've got the fingers working pretty well. And yeah, so that's the hand. I don't think there's any other switches on there or other controls. Talked about the legs, the shirt, and I think we've arrived at the face, so we'll do the face next.